The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
I'm strong, I'm sure, I'm in control. A lady with a plan, believing that life is a neat little package I hold in my hand. I've got it together, they call me the girl who knows just what to say and do. Still I fumble and fall, run into the wall. 'Cause when it comes to you, I'm just another woman in love, a kid out of school, a fire out of control, just another fool. You touch me.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. X-Zone Nation, this year, we're going to be starting on TV, according to Greg Potts, the head honcho over there. We're going to be starting around the 15th of December. As soon as I get an exact broadcast date, I will let you know. And we're really looking forward to working with the people at the new TV network. We're going to be talking about why love and sex drive us mad this hour, X-Zone Nation. My special guest is Liz Langley. And in Crazy Little Thing, Why Love and Sex Drive Us Mad, it's published by Viva Editions. Liz Langley interviewed dozens of people on the extreme edges of love and desire, as well as the experts, she didn't call me, of who's uncovering new scientific information that are just to ask, how much of our behavior is really our choice? Good question. Psychologists, academics and analysts of culture continue to offer us better understanding of ourselves in love and other areas. But the neurologist and other specialists armed with the brain scan have taken the game to a higher level. Joining me now is Liz Langley. And Liz,
hello.
Hey, what's the next step? You know, here we've got the neurologists who have stepped in with their MRIs and all the other neat scans that they can do. And what are we learning?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And what we're learning, thank you. Well, what we're learning is that the research that I started with was done by Helen Fisher, who is a cultural anthropologist at Rutgers. And what she did was she put people in love in an MRI machine and scanned their brains and saw what part of their brains lit up when they saw pictures of the person with whom they were in love, and as opposed to a neutral picture. And what she learned was some of the chemicals that were active during when we see that person and how they affect us. And what we're learning, there's more and more research being done on it. And a lot of the things that I see, one of the chemicals, probably the best known, is dopamine. That one has a ton of cultural currency. Everybody knows what dopamine is. Dopamine is the one that makes you go, oh my gosh, I want. And it gets you all excited, and it makes you crave someone or something and desire someone or something. And it's also a chemical of addiction. And so there has been some research. Actually, there was a study, I believe it was out of McGill University in Toronto, about dopamine, the role of dopamine when people hear music. And it was really cool because what they found was they studied people who get chills when they hear music, that it affects them so much that they'll get goosebumps when they hear certain kinds of music.
I don't know. That's never happened to me. What does that say about my musical tastes? I don't get goosebumps.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said I don't get goosebumps listening to music.
Well, some people are more affected by some things than others, and that's part of that. That's one of the things that I was looking at is why is it that some people are so much more deeply affected by things like love than other people are? And in this study, one of the things that they found was the part of your brain that anticipates. The part of people's brains that were anticipating a certain part of the music were active at one time.
All right, stand by, young lady. You and I have to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about a crazy little thing, why love and sex drive us mad. I have my own theories, but they're better left for a different show. Liz Langley is our guest, LizLangley.com. My name is Rob McConnell, and Liz and I will be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Thanks.
Liz Langley is my special guest this hour, X Zone Nation. We're going to be talking about crazy little thing, why love and sex drive us mad. And that was the Beatles going back to 1963 with Love Me Do. And would what we're talking about this hour explain why women and girls of all ages used to scream when the Beatles came on stage?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think that is a completely appropriate and really wonderful illustration of that excitement. And in teenagers especially, I have a segment about teenagers because I interviewed a girl who was 17 years old. When she was 17, she committed murder. She killed her mother.
Oh, God.
Over a relationship. And she's in jail for a long, long time here in Florida. She was 17 years old when that happened. And so she was obsessed. She also had borderline personality disorder, which had not been diagnosed until after she was arrested. And so I talked to a couple of people about how the brains of teenagers differ from the brains of adults. And teenagers are a lot more risk-taking. They're not quite, their brains are not quite as developed as adults. And so they're more prone to risk-taking behavior. And those chemicals that are really, really active when we fall in love with somebody and when we're in that crazy smitten phase, which is my favorite phase. I mean, not like the way out crazy, but just the joy of being in love with somebody is so immense. And the parts of our brain that are active at those times most of it is in the limbic system. And then there's this other part of our brain called the neocortex, which is more evolved. That's a more evolved part of our brain. And that's where the seat of reason is. That's where something called executive functioning is, in the front part of the neocortex. And so in adults, it's more developed, and that's why we're able to understand consequences a little better than teenagers are. And there are a couple of different people who talked in the book about this, one of whom said it's partly the way that we treat teenagers. When we treat them like they're children, they're going to behave like children, and they're not going to develop those faculties. So there is, you were talking before about what's the next step in this frontier. There's a little bit of a back and forth between how our brain already is wired and how its wiring changes, because its wiring can change. to become part of developing that reason and part of moving away from things like addiction to love or anything else is practice.
All right, so when people say that they're addicted to love or that love is like a drug, is this because of the dopamine?
There's dopamine. There's norepinephrine is another chemical that's in the mix. It's a bit like adrenaline that makes that kind of hyper flushed feeling. There's also, as love goes on, there's oxytocin, which is referred to as the cuddle hormone. That's a hormone of attachment and security, and serotonin, which gives you a feeling of well-being. So there's a lot of these chemicals, and you were I'm sorry, I was explaining some of the chemicals, and I forgot your initial question. It was... My question was... Go ahead. Was it whether that part of that neocortex is what is involved in sort of corralling those hormones? Was that the question?
The question was, is that why women of all ages yelled and went wild when the Beatles were on stage?
Well, yeah, that's that. It is that craving and desire and letting it out, and I would not be a bit surprised if that sort of kind of high level of emotion that when you see somebody that you love, usually you keep it in, but in a situation like that, I would say that that's also partly just a crowd thing where everybody else is going a little nuts, so you go a little nuts, and you feel free to let it out where you would not normally feel free to, somebody you're crazy about walking into the room. And
well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. All right, is there such a thing as unhealthy love?
Oh, certainly. There's obsessive love. And that is what some of the stories that I've talked about in this book were more obsessive and unhealthy love than healthy love. Like with Nikki, this girl who committed murder, she was more obsessed, and that's one of the things that I wanted to ask her was, everybody says something like, "Oh, I could kill so and so," but not. Thankfully, we don't all go out and do it. But why her? And why do other people? Why are they able to control it? And I asked her, was it still love to you after this happened, after you did this? And she said no. Immediately, everything shut down. It was like reality set in, and she realized it was obsession. This wasn't love.
So how do you how do you change a love that isn't healthy into a love that is?
Well, I think part of it is recognizing whether you even are able to keep that relationship, because if you back off and realize that this is really not making you happy, this is really making you unhappy, if you're attached to someone where the relationship it's a constant struggle and you're constantly asking yourself, why are you in this? And they're not really receptive to you. A lot of times it's unrequited love. Or one of the things that I see is people who are in relationships with somebody who isn't really meeting them halfway, and they're always wondering where they stand in the relationship. If you realize that you are more miserable than you are happy, then maybe it's time to back off and assess whether this is actually something that you want or something that you're staying in because you can't let it go.
Yeah, do people stay in these kind of relationships because they don't want to deal with the rejection?
Often. I think that's a big part of it. It's an investment. And when I talked to Helen Fisher, she talked about some of the primal, feelings that people have. They've invested reproductive time in someone. And so on a very primal level, that's there because, that span of your life doesn't last forever. So you want to find that person that you're going to reproduce with. Now, that's not true for everybody. It was not true for me. I didn't want to have kids, and I asked her about that. And she said that bonding is still important because we're social animals, and it's better for the group if we are part of the group and we have somebody to help us and we can help other people to take care of each other. And so that bonding is really important. That's where the things like oxytocin come in. But, you asked about the unhealthy love. If you are really continually more miserable than you are happy, then it's the hardest thing to do sometimes is look at that because you do get attached. You're emotionally invested. And you have somebody to feel that way about. I have a section on prison groupies and a thing called hybristophilia, which are people who fall in love with violent criminals. And these women who marry or become attached to men who are in prison.
Why would anyone in the right mind want to do that?
Well, one of the things that I talk about in the book is it depends on where you are in your life, what you're susceptible to. I think that your susceptibility to emotional invasion is similar to your susceptibility to a viral invasion. If you're at a low point in your immunity, you're going to be more likely to be susceptible. If you have a lot of other things going on in your life and you don't have the time to obsess about somebody, then you're probably going to be more immune to that sort of thing. But if you are kind of open to another person coming in, and then any kind of attachment can come in, even an unhealthy one. And these women who fall in love with these guys that they meet in prison, or who they find for some reason through prison, they become attached to that person sort of emotionally. They become invested in them, and they don't see the things that other people see. And even in the most normal relationship, or the most average relationship, the person who is in love sees the object of their affection much differently than the rest of us. We all have said, what is she seeing in that guy? And that guy doesn't have to be in prison. It can be just a regular guy. Then you got a guy who's in prison. Then it's like even more so, what in the world is she seeing in that guy?
Exactly. And tell me, in your experience as an expert on love, do any prison relationships ever work out?
Well, they work out. I think that they work out on an emotional level for some people who may not be able to have relationships in another way. Part of it is that person, and I talk about this is part of the psychology, not so much the brain chemistry, but that person is not actually really in your life. They're always far away from you. So you can tell yourself, I have somebody, and you can tell the rest of the world, yes, I have a husband, I have a boyfriend, I have this person who loves me, but they're not really part of your life. So you never have to integrate them in the same way you have to integrate another person. You never have to put up with the dirty socks on the floor, and you never have to have an argument because they're not there to have an argument with.
And I guess you never have to worry about them going out, spending all night with the guys at a bar and picking up someone and going home with someone else before they come home to you.
Right, because there's that attachment. It's kind of it's a bit of an illusion of an attachment, but it's your attachment. And for some women who, it's true. There's a woman who wrote a terrific. I talked to a forensic psychologist named Catherine Ramsland about this in a chapter where I went up to a Dracula convention in a little town in Pennsylvania to interview her, because she's written lots of these books on the supernatural and on vampires and on the criminal mind as well. And she's a terrific interview, so I went up there and talked to her. I do a lot of traveling for the book, and there's a lot of narrative like that in the book as well. So it's not all just psychology and brain chemistry. There's some road trips in the bargain.
Stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation, our guest is Liz Langley, and I've got to tell you something. If anybody's listening out there and you're going out with a convict or someone who's behind bars that you met while they were behind bars, love to hear from you. I'd like to know what makes you tick. Personally, I think your clock is running about 3 days slow, but I'd love to hear your side of it. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break. I don't know. I think my producer's going to stop laughing over there. He's saying, how come guys in prison can get a date and I can't? Oh,
There's a lot of that in the book, too.
All right, we're going to talk about that when we come back from this commercial break with the news as the X-Zone continues with my guest this hour, Liz Langley. www.lizlangley.com. Don't go away.
Someone to love, somebody new, someone to love, tonight you're mine completely. You give
I can just see this. Somebody's at home sitting down with her dad, and Dad says to this young lady who's 37 by now, she still lives at home, "So what's new with you today, Mabel?" Mabel looks at Dad with a big smile and says, "I met the man of my dreams." Father smiles and says, "Oh, really? When do we meet him?" "Well, you can come with me on Sunday. Visiting hours are from 2 in the afternoon until 4. But we'd like you out by 3 so we can go to the trailer in the walking yard and have conjugal sex." I don't think so. Oh, my goodness. Our special guest this hour is Liz Langley. Liz, great having you with us. Thanks very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here on the X Zone. And why did you write this book?
Well, I wrote this book because I was a pop culture writer for many, many years, including for a while I wrote for the Toronto Sun. I wrote a Sunday column in the Toronto Sun, and I wrote for several newspapers. And I switched to the sex and relationships genre in about 2004. Mm-hmm. And one of the very first books that I looked at, as a matter of fact, was Helen Fisher's Why We Love the Nature and Chemistry of Romantic Love, which is the book that she talked about where she put these people in the brain scanners and looked at their brains in love. And so fast forward a few years, I had much more heavily concentrated on the sex side of the sex and relationships genre because to me that was where the fun was. It was like more fun and easy than talking about relationships. And then I got sick. And the last thing I really wanted to think about was sex. I kind of went through this little time where I just I'm tired and I don't feel well.
Not tonight, honey. I've got a headache, right?
Yeah, not tonight, honey. Yeah. But then it's like, not tonight to all of your editors. I don't want to talk about this. Yeah. Let me talk about something else. And so I thought, well, let me actually take a look at the love side of this whole thing. And when I did, I found some of these really, really wild stories. And I'm so intrigued by the fact that love it's such a huge dichotomy. It can make you feel happier and more high and even more spiritually elevated. And just like, there's a great line in the movie As Good as It Gets where Jack Nicholson says, "You make me want to be a better person." And that's what love feels like. It's such a transformative and heightening thing. And then it can also bring you down to the lowest of the low and make you
big
feel
time, yeah.
So horrible. And part of the message of the book is that first of all, you're not alone in it, and secondly, hopefully some of these explanations of brain chemistry and psychology will give people different ways of looking at their situation. That it's not that you're fundamentally flawed as a human being. It's that maybe you have a little bit too much of this chemical in your system, or this is part of your psychology that you may not know about, or you may not be aware of. That you're trying to fix something from your past that through your present relationship, things like that. And so I wanted to give people a new way of looking at things. Plus, I got to then talk to some of these people who had been in these relationships that were very extreme, or explore some of these stories further for people who did completely crazy things. And so that people who go over that edge are fascinating. So I got to look at a lot of that.
Here's a question for you. Why is it that people keep on going back to the same type of person that they had in previous relationships?
Well, and I'm glad you asked that question because that's part of the psychological component of it. One of the people that I interviewed is a woman named Sherry Winston, who's a terrific sex therapist and author. And she talked to me about the imago theory of Harville Hendrix. This is like in the late 80s, a doctor named Harville Hendrix developed this. And it's about exactly what I was just saying. You want to go back and fix the relationships that you had in the past, like with your parents or with your early caregivers, if something was wrong or bad in that relationship. Sometimes in our present relationships, what we try to do is go back and we find somebody who is like that person, who has the same traits as that person, and if they're bad traits, or even abusive traits, we try to get that person not to be bad to us or not to be abusive to us, and that way we sort of are psychologically trying to fix the past. But what happens is if we are with that same kind of person again and again and again, if they're not working on it and you're not working on it, nothing's going to change. You just keep going back and back and back to the same person. I also talked to an adoption specialist, a guy named Joe Saul in New York, about, I did a chapter on something called genetic sexual attraction, which is people who are separated at birth, typically by adoption, and then when they're reunited later in life, they fall in love. Brothers and sisters who fall in love later in life when they meet, because they don't have that incest taboo. They did not grow up together. And here they see somebody who's just like them, and they're very drawn to them. They may even look like them. And they think, it's the greatest thing that ever happened to them. And as adults, that means often falling in love. And then it becomes sexual. And it will probably not end well. And so there's a couple of cases in the book that I talk about. But Joe Saul also talks about that. If a woman was abused when she was younger, or if somebody felt rejected when they were younger, then they're going to find, what he said about the woman who was abused is if you put her in a room with 100 men, she will find somehow that one who will be abusive, because she will try to rework the relationship. And if she can go back and make him not be abusive to her, then she's fixed it. Then she's fixed the past. And so trying to learn to work around those things and work through those things in our own psyche, and get to where we're in a healthier relationship is part of the goal.
How has the internet affected our sex lives?
Wow, I think it's opened them up. I think it certainly opened us up to the possibilities that we didn't have before. I think, and in many ways, I think it's really good, because there are people who have interests that they might not have been able to find. They might not have been able to find a community before, and they can find a community now. So I think that sexually, people are more able to go out and well, I was going to say go out and meet other people, and stay in and meet other people first. But I think, it's allowed us a lot of different ways to connect to other people. Certainly, there's a lot of dating sites and dating services.
But isn't there a lot? But isn't there a lot more infidelity now that the internet's around? Because people hide behind a mask of anonymity until a time when they meet, and they've had all this time to build up a false persona.
Well, and that's an interesting thing that I was actually just doing a story on pornography, and that same thing that, in the 70s, pornography was a little bit more, it was more out there. It was in theaters. People would go to see Deep Throat on a date, and not a lot of people maybe, but enough that it was on monologues on late night TV. And now that it's more ubiquitous on the web, I think that there's also some element of it that's more secretive. And I think you're right, that people can be a little bit more secretive with their relationships via text and through email and through Facebook. Well, maybe not Facebook, because that's a little bit more public. But yes, people have more opportunity. But I think that people were able to do that. They have more opportunities to connect. But I think that people have been doing that for a long time. I don't think infidelity it's not a new phenomenon.
But it's a lot easier to have secret relationships because of the internet than before. A lot of people are, like how many families have broken up because of infidelity started on the internet?
Well, I don't know whether there's a statistic about that, but I think also there are more opportunities to get caught as well. I talk to people all the time. Well, I shouldn't say all the time, but I have talked to people who will check their partner's text messages or look at their email, and you think that you're getting away with something, but there's also some opportunity to get caught. And I think that's, look at Anthony Weiner. That was one mistake, and everybody knows your entire personal life. So I think that, and this is not necessarily defending it. I'm just saying that there is, as much as there's opportunity to secretly connect with other people, there's opportunities to get caught as well. But I also think if you were the type of person who was going to cheat, you're the type, you would do it whether you had the internet or if it was 1940 and you didn't have the internet.
Where are some of the most unusual places people find love these days?
The most unusual places for love, I think that's part of the great thing about the internet is that when people are able to find communities, like, I'll just throw out this Dracula convention that I went to. I thought this was going to be like some big fancy, like at a big fancy hotel, and there would be a lot of Twilight fans, but it's like this little town in Pennsylvania, and so it's a niche, and people who are really interested in something like that, or people who are really interested in science fiction, or people who are really interested in survivalism, or anything that they're interested in, they'll find a group. And I think that people are able to hook up that way, and I think that that's really interesting, that if you have a very kind of niche interest, then you'll find you are more able to find somebody else who has that interest and develop a relationship that way.
What are some of the best ways that you've come across talking to the people that you've talked about to deal with heartbreak?
I think the best way to deal with heartbreak, first of all, is to talk about it. I think isolation is one of the main causes of pain, of emotional pain. You think you're the only one, I talked to a woman for the book who is an animator and a cartoonist. Her name is Nina Paley, and she did some terrific work on. She had a breakup. And she talked about what she went through and the depression that she went through. And she ended up making this beautiful, beautiful movie. Wow. And one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to her is because she did such a beautiful thing. And I talked to other people who committed assault or murder or all these crazy things. It's like, how did she get to do this beautiful thing? Well, she worked through it, and she had that understanding of you're not alone and connecting to other people and practice getting, I know it sounds funny, but practice getting away from that idea. Dr. Joseph Schrand is one of the people I talked to in the book. He gave me the skinny kind of on brain anatomy. And I interviewed him later on after the book when Amy Winehouse died, when we were talking about addiction. Yeah. And he said, when you go to that substance that you're using, typically drugs and alcohol, in some people's cases it's love. And the thought of that other person, and I'm a tremendous romantic, so I have that too. The thought of that other person kind of takes you away and out of yourself. And he said, you go to that when you're in a stressful situation. You're training your brain to think you need it. So that when you get in a stressful situation again, your brain is going to look for it again. And you're having it understand that you can't do it on your own. You can't weather this on your own. You need this other thing. So when I heard that, I thought it was intuitively right to me.
All right, let me ask you this, because we're running short on time here, and there's still a few more questions I'd like to get in. What was the most shocking thing that you found during the research for your book?
I think the most shocking thing that I found, there are a couple of things, but one of the most was that there's a woman named Stephanie Ortiz, and I can't remember what school she's out of, but she did a study where she found that falling in love takes 1/5 of a second. And I thought that was like, how do you fight that? If it happens to you, it explains love at first sight.
Exactly.
But if it can happen to you, if it can get in that quickly, Malcolm Gladwell did that terrific book, Blink, about rapid cognition and how we understand something. We make a decision about something in 2 seconds. We kind of pretend to think about it, but we make the decision in 2 seconds. And 2 seconds, 1/5 of a second has it all over 2 seconds. So that opportunity, that craving and desire and all that dopamine and norepinephrine have a chance to kind of get into your system long before you get a chance to sit around and think about it for the other 1 second.
So what is it that stops people from going crazy as opposed to just feeling crazy?
Well, I think first of all, isolation is a big thing. If they're keeping these thoughts to themselves, if they don't have a support system, if they don't have other people who are able to talk them down and who they will allow to talk them down. A lot of times we don't want to hear it. I'm sure everybody listening to this has had that friend where they said, I don't know that guy's good for you. And instead of listening, they get mad at you because they don't want to hear that guy's not good for you. and they want to hear that he's wonderful because they think he's wonderful. So, listening to your friends and understanding that the people around you, especially if more than one of them is saying it, they have your best interest at heart, and they don't want to see you go off the deep end. And those things that people say, like you can do better and you're worth more, it's true. You just have to, but it does take some work, and it does take some practice. And therapy also is another thing, whether it's that you go to a group or you go online, or if you have the money to go see somebody. That's another big one.
I don't know if I'd actually trust anybody who does therapy online.
No, I mean, when I say go online, I don't mean online therapy.
Oh,
I mean, if you are able to find, like, you can find all kinds of support groups, like if it's a love addiction.
Oh, I understand. Okay, because I could just see this big burly guy sitting in a prison library waiting for Mabel to come for her weekly visit. Answering questions from a lovelorn sweetheart somewhere in the middle of Idaho.
Yeah, and what he says to her is, if you should write to a guy in prison. They really need you.
Hey, listen, you and I've got to take our final break. Please stand by, Liz. Liz Langley is our guest, www.lizlangley.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Alrighty, this segment here is 4 minutes and 50 seconds. We're just queuing up the clocks.
It's just a wrap-up kind of thing then, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like me to talk about to wrap up?
I don't know. I'll figure it out when we get there.
Okay. I'm winging it. Okay. This is fun.
Thank you. Okay, stand by. Here we go. 8 seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Here we go.
Why do you love me? Why do you love me? Why do you love me? Now that I can dance. Watch me now. Oh, I said I'll work it on, baby. Oh, you're driving me crazy. Oh, with a little bit of soul now. Now I can do the blues, and I can do the twist. I said, now tell me, baby, now do you like it like this? Whoa, tell me.
Welcome back, everyone. Liz Langley is our guest to this hour. www.lizlangley.com. That's LIZLANGLEY.com. And we're talking about Crazy Little Thing, why love and sex drive us mad. What is it that you'd like people to walk away with after reading your book?
Well, first of all, I want them to enjoy reading it because there are a lot of, it's funny. I mean, I know it sounds like it's not because it's sort of a serious subject, and I do talk to murderers. And I talk about
sure.
people
After listening to us for an hour, they realize how serious this is. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
There's a lot of it. Hopefully it's really funny and it's really a pleasure to read, but what I would like them to take away from it is that there is a lot of different ways that they can look at their situation. And I feel like people do feel like there's something wrong with them fundamentally if they can't make something work, and that's not true. There are other ways for you to look at it. Maybe there's something in your background you're not looking at. Maybe there is some psychological work that you haven't done. People talk about a change of scene really helping. Dopamine is a chemical of novelty. So that's why a change of scene helps, I think. And so getting away from some of those old things and putting them behind you and looking at something new that can help you tremendously. You're not on your own, and that there are a lot of ways to look at this. And there are a lot of people who are a lot crazier than you. I think that's another thing that I think that people should know. We all feel crazy. Not all of us go crazy.
Let me ask you, we've got about a minute and a half left. How's your love life?
Well, it's right now I'm doing some of that work myself, so it's a little bit of a halt because I've decided to take some time off. As a matter of fact, there is a guy who is trying to make a vaccine against cocaine and nicotine addiction. Mm-hmm. And since the same parts of the brain are active in cocaine and nicotine addiction are also active in romantic difficulty or rejection or breakups and things like that, I emailed him and said, can I get immunized against falling in love again for like a year? He said, unfortunately, no.
Well, you know what? Craig, my producer, found a great website for you to go to. It's called datacon.com. So there you go.
Maybe that's what I need to put my time into. No, I think I'm going to put my time into me instead. How about that?
Sounds great. Liz, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Great chatting with you. Let our listeners know about how they can find out more about you and where they can get your book.
They can find out more about me at lizlangley.com. My bio is on there. I'm a columnist and a reporter for Sexist magazine online, and the book will be widely available in bookstores on December 1st, or they can go to the Cleis Press website, that's CLEIS.com, or Amazon.com, and pre-order.
Liz, thanks very much for joining us. Great talking to you. I wish you success both in your literary career as well as your love life.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was a joy, and I love Canada, so I'm so happy that I got to be on the radio.
We love you too. Take care of yourself, Liz. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. You too.
Liz Langley has been my guest this hour. www.lizlangley.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
Why do you love me? Why do you love me? Do you love me? Now that I can dance. Watch me now. Oh, I said I'll work it on, baby. Oh, you're driving me crazy. Oh, with a little bit of soul now. Tell me, baby, now do you like it like this? Whoa, tell me. Why do you love me?
Welcome back, everyone. Liz Langley is our guest to this hour. www.lizlangley.com. That's LIZLANGLEY.com. And we're talking about Crazy Little Thing, why love and sex drive us mad. What is it that you'd like people to walk away with after reading your book?
Well, first of all, I want them to enjoy reading it because there are a lot of, it's funny. I mean, I know it sounds like it's not because it's sort of a serious subject, and I do talk to murderers. And
after listening to us for an hour, they realize how serious this is, yeah. Okay, gotcha.
There's there's a lot of it. Hopefully it's really funny and it's really a pleasure to read, but what I would like them to take away from it is that there is a lot of different ways that they can look at their situation. And I feel like people do feel like there's something wrong with them fundamentally if they can't make something work, and that's not true. There are other ways for you to look at it. Maybe there's something in your background you're not looking at. Maybe there is, some psychological work that you haven't done. People talk about a change of scene really helping. Dopamine is a chemical of novelty. So that's why a change of scene helps, I think. And so getting away from some of those old things and putting them behind you and looking at something new that can help you tremendously. You're not on your own, and that there are a lot of ways to look at this. And there are a lot of people who are a lot crazier than you. I think that's another thing that I think that people should know. We all feel crazy. Not all of us go crazy.
Let me ask you, we've got about a minute and a half left. How's your love life?
Well, it's right now I'm doing some of that work myself, so it's a little bit of a halt because I've decided to take some time off. As a matter of fact, there is a guy who is trying to make a vaccine against cocaine and nicotine addiction. And since the same parts of the brain are active in cocaine and nicotine addiction are also active in romantic difficulty or rejection or breakups and things like that, I emailed him and said, can I get immunized against falling in love again for like a year? He said, unfortunately, no.
Well, you know what? Craig, my producer, found a great website for you to go to. It's called datacon.com. So there you go.
Maybe that's what I need to put my time into. No, I think I'm going to put my time into me instead. How about that?
Sounds great. Liz, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Great chatting with you. Let our listeners know about how they can find out more about you and where they can get your book.
They can find out more about me at lizlangley.com. My bio is on there. I'm a columnist and a reporter for Sexist magazine online, and the book will be widely available in bookstores on December 1st, or they can go to the Cleis Press website, that's CLEIS.com, or Amazon.com, and pre-order.
Liz, thanks very much for joining us. Great talking to you. I wish you success both in your literary career as well as your love life.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was a joy, and I love Canada, so I'm so happy that I got to be on the radio.
We love you too. Take care of yourself, Liz. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. You too.
Liz Langley has been my guest this hour. www.lizlangley.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.